I had said something yesterday, which with the Ramchal, which we're discussing, it gives us a much greater understanding. In the past, I explained it, but to really fully grasp it, why it's that way, you're not able to understand it. But with what we've been discussing in terms of Ramchal, you're able to understand it. If you remember, I mentioned what it says in the 6th chapter in Pirkei Avos, in Ethics of Our Fathers, that they're with 3 crowns that were endowed to the Jewish people: the crown of priesthood, the crown of royalty, and the crown of Torah. Which tribe was endowed with the crown of priesthood, or which family within that tribe? Aaron and his children, they merited the crown of priesthood. Meaning, if you're from the progeny, the male progeny of Aaron, the brother Moshe, then you're a Kohen. If not, you're not a Kohen. You're only qualified to officiate if you have that pedigree. If you don't have that pedigree, you're not qualified to officiate. As the Torah prescribes, you must be a Kohen. We speak about kingship, the kingship of the Jewish people. You must be from the Davidic line. If you're not from the Davidic line, you're not considered, you don't possess the pedigree of royalty. It's interesting. We find at the time of the Greeks, so there was a battle between the Chashmonoim, which is a family of priests, and the Greeks. And this family, they led the battle, and they were victorious over the Greeks. And that's we celebrate Hanukkah. What happened after the victory? The family of the Kohanim, they became the kings. They were the kings. They did not allow Yehuda, meaning the Davidic line, to come back, that they should be the kings in Israel. We find that Herod was a Canaanite slave in the house of the Chashmonoim, and he went and he killed every member of that family. And he left one woman to survivor of that family, and he wanted to marry her, and he was going to proclaim himself as the head of the Chashmonoi family, of the Chashmonoi. They were like the lead of the elite of priests. And what happened was, there's no way she was going to agree to have a slave marry her, a Canaanite slave. So as a result of that, and he was going to force her into marriage, she committed suicide. She would not marry him. As a result of this, there wasn't one survivor of the Chashmonoi family, the family that brought about the victory over the Greeks, the ones who rededicated the temple, the ones who, due to their endless self-sacrifice, they guaranteed the survival of the spiritual Jewish people. There's not one surviving member of that family. They were totally annihilated. So Nachmanides asked the question. I mean, they have such merit. If not for them, there would not be a Jewish people. And yet, despite that, that merit wasn't sufficient to protect them, that they should be able to continue. Why did God allow them to be annihilated? That's the question Nachmanides asks in the portion of Vayechi. So he says something very profound. He says that before Yaakov, who was the most special patriarch of the Jewish people, who fathered the 12 tribes, he distributed and identified the various responsibilities among his 12 sons. He had endowed royalty to Yehuda, not to Levi, not to the tribe of Levi. The Chashmonoim from the tribe of Levi, they were Levites, but they were Kohanim. They were the lead of tribe of Levi. Because they actually usurped what Yaakov had put in place, and they violated the dictate of their grandfather, the patriarch Yaakov. Therefore, all the merit they had, they weren't worthy to survive. That's why they were annihilated. So therefore, you're only a king if you have that pedigree. If you don't have the pedigree, it's equivalent, you're an imposter. You want to take over the position just for a while was one thing, because there's no one else. But they could have instated the Davidic line. They did not. Therefore, they were deserving, they were culpable, and therefore they were removed. That there's not one surviving member. That's Nachmanides, the portion of Vayechi. So what is the crown of Kuna? The crown of Kuna means if you have the pedigree of you're a descendant of the paternal line of Aaron, you're a Kohen. If you have the pedigree that you're from the paternal line of David, the Davidic line, then you're royalty. That means you have royal blood in your veins. Just putting on a crown is not going to make you the king. You may be wearing the vestments of a king, but you're not a king. But yet, when the Rambam speaks about the crown of Torah, he says the crown of Torah has relevance to every Jew, as it says in the Torah, that the Torah itself is Morosha Kilas Yaakov. It's the heritage of every Jew, of the congregation of Jacob. Every Jew has a right to that crown, to wear the crown of Torah. But how does one acquire the crown of Torah? He must study. And he must study at a very advanced, extensive level that you're fully dedicated to advance and develop in the area of Torah. And then you merit the crown of Torah. But until you study and you accumulate this level of knowledge on that qualitative advanced level, one doesn't merit the crown of Torah. So the question I asked seems to be they're not comparable. The Kohen is a Kohen because his pedigree innately, that's his pedigree. Davidic line, because that's your pedigree. You're from the Davidic line of David. But the crown of Torah, until you actually engage at that very advanced level, you don't merit it. That means you're not the person until. But how do, by doing that, by engaging at that advanced level, how do you become that person? So what I used to say, so you see clearly that when you study Torah at this very extensive, selfless immersion in Torah, actually a metamorphosis takes you, become spiritualized. And that spiritualization causes you to become this different entity of person, and therefore you have that innate holiness, and therefore you wear the crown of Torah. The crown of Torah is that essence of who you become through the Torah. But the question is, evidently that's fact. But how does that happen? How does that happen? So I said yesterday, I alluded to this, or I said it even very clearly, what is the objective of creation? That we should achieve perfection. What's perfection? We have deficiencies, very serious deficiencies, especially since the sin of Adam. We have to achieve perfection. The only way to achieve perfection, the script and the program is called Torah, and it dictates the study of Torah, the positive and negative commandments. That's the only way you're able to advance the deficiency which lies within your soul. So how does one expand and advance the spirituality of your soul? To achieve perfection, it's through Torah. Torah and its mitzvos and its dictates. As a result of that, it's your essence. Why did you become that? What is the crown of Torah? When you take that soul and you advance it, the soul becomes that. So it is the essence. It's not it is a metamorphosis, but what is the process? As a deficient spiritual person, you have no relevance to the crown of Torah. When do you wear the crown of Torah? When you advance that deficiency, when you overcome that deficiency. Now we're talking about you can flex your spiritual muscle, so to say. You have a muscle that's atrophying, and then after you exercise it and you infuse it with certain infusions which strengthens the muscle and causes it to grow. Now the person has a muscle mass. Now you have a mass of spirituality that allows you to, that is the essence of the crown of Torah. That you display that persona of holiness, that is the crown of Torah. And that is more than the crown of the pedigree of Kohen, the pedigree of royalty. Because that, you're born with that. This is acquired. It's acquired through your level of sacrifice and dedication to Torah at that special level. Therefore, you become that. Because the objective of existence is to to address the void, address the vacuum, and we have to fill it in. How do you fill it in? By advancement. Advancement's only through Torah and its mitzvos. That's what I said yesterday. Today I'm saying it, I'm embellishing it a little bit more to appreciate what that is. Now, to appreciate what perfection is, as I said, there are many things the human being or even an angel cannot fully fathom. Anything which has limitation cannot fathom the unlimited. Therefore, even the greatest angel cannot fathom God's essence. God's essence is infinite. The greatest angel is finite. Everything that exists, we speak about the unity of God, emanates from God. Now, if you have fire and water, the way God created the world, could fire and water coexist? They cannot coexist. But yet, God who wills everything, fire and water could coexist. During the hail, the plague of hail, fire and water coexist. But how? How's it possible? But you don't understand. If everything emanates from God, because He is the essence of everything, it's whatever He wills to be, that's what it is. It's not fathomable, because to fathom that, you have to be able to fathom the essence of God. But the unity of God means everything emanates from Him, even though it seems to be contradictory. Evil is contradictory to good. So we, as little peons who have a limited understanding of everything, we see good and evil. We say, if there's good and there's evil, evidently they must emanate from two different locations. There must be a power that's called good and a power that's called evil. But if you understand that nothing exists outside of God, there's nothing beyond God's ability, so He wills evil. But how could it be if He's good? The answer is, as we said, evil is an absence of God's full involvement. That allows evil to be. It's the vacuum. It's the vacuum of spiritual, but still, but that's God. That's the unity of God. We see things which are contradictory because only then could you appreciate the unity of God. At the end of time, when God will reveal how everything emanates from Him, then we'll have an appreciation why everything could be the way it is. Because the ultimate objective is to see things which are contradictory, things which are mind-boggling. We see the evil thrive and the good suffer. There are many things which we don't understand, but at the end of time, we will understand, because everything emanates, everything goes into the equation that ultimately that the world should reach its level of perfection. And everything that's needed, that happens, is for that. I'll give you an example. It's a known fact. I was never a forest ranger, but it's known that forest fires are essential for the reforestation of forests, for the trees and the forest to grow and to have new growth spurts and to remain healthy and thriving, to advance. The forest every once in a while has to be burnt down. And that itself invigorates the whole system, the whole ecological system, that it should be able to grow even better. Otherwise, if it grows over an extended period of time, if it doesn't happen, it withers and it disappears. She said, it doesn't make any sense. You got to burn it down for it to grow. How do we understand it? Well, if you're an ecologist and you're into botany, you understand this, maybe you'll understand it. But what do we understand? It doesn't make sense. You burn it, that's how you grow it. It has to be burnt, you have to burn it down. Just the opposite. You say nourish it, sustain it, put more minerals, fertilize it up to a point. But ultimately, with all that, it's not going to last. It will ultimately wither. It has to be destroyed through fire, and afterwards, there's a resurgence, a rebirth of nature. That's the way it works. How do we understand it? Seems to be contrary to our understanding of many things. We build, we don't destroy. It's interesting. It says in Pirkei Avos that the building of the youth is destruction. And the destruction, the dismantling of the wise, of the elders, is building. Some people think, we got to build, we got to advance, we got to do, but they don't understand. You're going off the cliff. And sometimes the elders, they say, we have to dismantle. And by dismantling, that's building, that's securing. But it seems the youth look at the elders, the whole thing doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense because you don't understand. But if you don't understand, you understand that the dismantling of the elders is building. And the elders can't explain to the youth why their building is dismantling because they're actually undermining everything. I'll give you an example. Person has dreams, he wants to become very wealthy. And he goes and he has assets that he inherited from his father, and he puts it up for collateral with the bank, and he leverages everything towards his dream of wealth. And he's building this and that without a stop, without taking it into account, hedging his issues with inflation, with the economy. What happens if you can't pay the mortgage? The bank forecloses on you. All you inherited, all your assets is gone. It's gone. But I want to build. But if you have that sage wisdom and understand the way markets operate, you can't just put yourself out on a limb. But I'm building. You're building, but you don't know what the end of the day is going to be. You're self-destructing. The well-weathered, astute businessman, he does it only in a way where he's very secure because he's seen it before. Therefore, he has sage wisdom. He understands how to approach it. But the young person says he's not willing to listen. I know better. It's not going to be. I've read about it. It's not going to happen. I'll be the exception. Okay, believe what you want. But, history repeats itself. And, you have the lows and you have the highs. You're going to end up in the lows. You're not going to come out of the low to get to the high ever again. But that's it. It's always that way. You see things which seem to be one way, and then it turns the other way. And the other way only allows the resurgence to go up again. So these are all models of the reality of deficiency, that through deficiency, you achieve growth. We grew up many years ago. Today, you don't hear it. Or even when I raised my children to hear it, there was a thing called growing pains. Person had, as a child, he reaches a certain age in adolescence, and he has pains in his legs, different pains. Take him to pediatrician, it's growing pains. That's what they used to say. Today, they drug the kid, give him some kind of medication, give him some kind of Ritalin, everything's solved. The kid doesn't know what world he's in. No growing pains anymore. And the kid, when he's on Ritalin, he thinks he knows better than his parents, exactly how to see life. But he has tri-colored glasses that he sees it through such a lens, but he knows better. But there's growing pains. What do you mean? You have to have pain to grow. That's the way it is. You have pain to grow. But pain seems to be, it's just, there's an ailment. No, pain does not mean ailment. Sometimes before the growth spurt, you have to have that pain before you make the spurt of growth and advance yourself. But all of this is a reflection of what? Of the unity of God. When you see things which are negative and contrary to what makes sense, ultimately is what brings, that has to happen to be able to achieve perfection, to be able to grow into the healthy adult, to maintain a healthy economy. But you have to take into account all the shifts, the downshifts, the upgrowth, all that is being kept to maintain a healthy economy, and how to set the value of money, the interest rates, everything else. I'm not coming to give a lecture in economics here. Okay, I'm not willing to take the position. Biden often said to me, Chairman of the Federal Reserve, I wouldn't take away from Yellen. Or Yellen, I let her have it. It's fine. I get some smiles on your faces. Include with this. Every day we say that God renews creation. There's always a continuous renewal in creation. There's no question that the sun rises and sets. It only does that continuously for the past so many thousands of years because God wills it. As he initially willed it, he continues to will it. that there should be humanity walking the face of the earth. Everything, the climate, the seasons, that's God wills that. If he would cease willing it, nothing would be. But even when he wills it, the nuances, the difference from day to day. The world itself is a different world today than it was. Let's say the modernization, advancement of technology, science, all these things didn't exist previously. Because God wills a new energy, that energy, so this, why now do we have, why did you have an industrial revolution? Why do we have all the advancement in medicine and in technology? Why? Why now? That all plays in to address the deficiency in existence to ultimately bring about perfection. I'll give you an example. There's certain people I know, they contributed to certain chairs in universities because they felt having that Jewish influence, the world would see Jews differently. They would see, for the sake of really what we call Kiddush Hashem. That's why they gave the chair in Columbia and NYU, these different universities. And when they contribute to certain caucuses, because Jewish money, they'll have some level of influence. They'll see the Jews are interested in the politics of the United States, okay? But it's reached a point in universities, and I told one of these people, it's a voice in the wilderness. Today, I couldn't care how much money you give. There's such anti-Semitism among professors, among the college students. No matter what you give, they don't want to know about you. They'll tell you, you know something, you keep your money. We don't want your money. So you're just wasting it. Today, we're at a point, the only way to address all these issues, you know how? We have to be better Jews and we have to pray to God. God is the only one who can rectify this. When you come to that understanding, what does that mean? The only way these deficiencies could be addressed is only by God willing it differently. Because we understand that the only thing why things are the way they are is because God wills it that way. It's so bad. Anti-Semitism. It's contrary. It's a desecration of his name. But only when you realize to what degree his name is desecrated and you appreciate that, then it'll say, you know something, now I'm going to show you something. And that's what he's going to reveal himself. And all these people are going to be held accountable and liable, and they're going to be destroyed. But you say, but how could it be? Why does he allow it? That's part of his unity. So every day he tweaks the system, whether it gets better or worse, whatever it is, we have no understanding why it's this way, why it can't be done differently, that ultimately we should understand that it's all emanating from him. And all the pain and the suffering and all the anti-Semitism, whatever happens, that's all for the sake of addressing the deficiencies, to understand that everything emanates from him and he's the absolute and everything. And that's the concept of the unity of God. That's what it's all about. You know, it's interesting. You read about World War II. Hitler, Yimach Shmo B'Zichro, he took over Europe almost without firing a shot. He went into Poland. He took over parts of Europe. I mean, it was almost like a joke. They just went in, took over, and immediately they started to kill people. They strafed Poland. It was called, you know, the Blitzkrieg over Poland. They strafed the country. Once they did that, Poland was at their knees. They just marched in, took over Poland. And they did it with many countries. That's it. They took over. It's like they just fell. They were like a domino effect, one after. It was unheard of to take over literally with a minimum amount of effort, no casualties. They just took it over. How does it happen? And this is evil. This is evil really rearing its head at a level with such extreme evil that it's not to be believed that God would allow such a thing. Doesn't make sense. If you understand God's unity, it's only for you to appreciate who he is that he could do this. Because the things which are contrary to his being, And only because everything emanates from him, that's the only way to understand it. But we will not understand it till he reveals himself. Then we'll play the tape back and we'll see how every piece fits into the picture, because only then will we appreciate who he is. That there's nothing beyond his ability. And even this was only to appreciate who he is at the end of the day. That's the understanding. I'll give you an example. A child doesn't appreciate his father. And his father has the ability to help him every step of the way. And the child is really hurting. And the child believes that his father had abandoned him, or the father doesn't even have the ability to help him. And he's hurting, and he's in a state of despair. And all of a sudden the father comes, and he helps him in every step of the way, and is able to address every problem he has. The child's amazed. Says, I never thought you had the ability to do this. I never thought you would do it. I never even thought you can do it. I never thought you had the understanding to be able to resolve my issues. So it's only because the child reached such a level of despair, believing it was hopeless, now the child appreciates the capacity of the father. Lahavdil, that's what's going to happen with Hashem. Everything emanates from God. We see things which are contrary to God's existence. As we can see later, people will say, "Let's din, let's die." There's no judge, there's no judgment. It seems everything's random. And therefore, we reach that point, it doesn't add up, doesn't make sense. But we just close our eyes and bite the bullet. When God will reveal himself, we understand all this was only, he allowed that to appreciate who he is, that he's the absolute and everything emanates from him.